Welcome back to another edition of Amazing. Okay, and today we're going to talk about how the Arabs of the 7th century, Muhammad ibn Abdullah was born in the 6th century, but he mentioned about Pulsars in the 7th century. Okay, he mentioned about the pulsars in the when he during the 7th century. Okay, he lived to be approximately 63 years old, and so when he started giving information about these different miraculous scientific facts, he was at least 40 years old. So that puts all of that into the 7th century, at the beginning of the 7th century. Okay. So mention the pulsars in the Quran. That's amazing, because again, we're talking about these are recent discoveries. And so how did an illiterate man, during the 7th century know things like this? It's amazing. So it's hard for anyone to imagine that an illiterate man that couldn't read or write during the 7th century in the middle of the desert would be able to come up with such information that was not known until recently. All right, so let's take a look in detail, a little more detail, with this information that was known to the Arabs of the 7th century by way of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who was known to be a prophet of the Creator, prophet of the God of mankind, because of his foretelling, and also because of the Quran having such miraculous information inside of it, confirming that it must be from Almighty God and not from him. All right, so what exactly is a pulsar, for those who don't know? At the end of their life, stars transform into a different form depending on the mass of the star. This is really, I can't express enough how amazing this is. I started doing a little studying about the stars and space and things like that there, and I found it to be quite amazing, quite amazing. It makes you hunger for more and more information and more knowledge about it. Okay, so I apologize for the video of myself going in and out, but that's outside of my control. That's as a result of the defect, I guess, within the Zoom program. But nonetheless, the information that I'm giving you is the most important thing. It's not as important to see me, although you may like to see me talking about this particular subject. All right. At the end of their life, stars transform into different forms depending on the mass of the star, as I told you in detail in Quran miracles, black holes. So black holes is another thing that is spoken about in the Quran. Amazing, amazing. In the 7th century, that this information is being spoken about. One of the forms that stars transform into at the end is neutron stars. Okay. Here, just a little information. Another form of stars transform at the end of the neutrons are neutron stars. They're created when large massive stars die in supernovas and their cores collapse. This is very, very interesting. Okay.
Another form that stars transform at their end is neutron stars. They are created when large massive stars die in supernovas and their cores collapse, with the proton and electrons melting into each other to form neutrons. Neutrino stars are heavy mass stars that keep on fusing heavy and heavy elements until they end up at iron. As I told you in part 18, you cannot get energy out of fusing iron. The star collapse and electron combine with the proton to make neutrons. If a neutron star or any denser, it would collapse into a black hole and disappear. They are very dense, 1.4 to 3 solar masses.
Okay. So just, I don't want to make this video too long, so I stopped that. All right. But just, that's just a little information that is already spoken about in the Quran in the 7th century. So, and I was doing a little research on it. I found it to be very interesting. So, what happens is, with some stars, uh, you know, they keep drawing in matter from around it, okay, until it becomes so dense and you can't see it, because it actually collapses in on itself and the light is drawn inwards instead of outwards. So what it appears from us looking at it, even with modern technology, it only looks like a black hole, but we know it's there because what's around it is going in and disappearing, going inward and disappearing. Amazing. All right. So this is what we're talking about. All right. So as it's continuing here, they're created when large massive stars die in supernovas and their cores collapse, with the protons and electrons melting into each other to form neutrons. Neutrino stars are heavy mass stars that keep on fusing heavy and heavy elements until they end up at iron. As I told you in part 18, this was referring to a part 18, you cannot get energy out of fusing iron. The star collapse and electron combine with the proton to make neutrons. Okay, if a neutron star were any denser, it would collapse and convert into a black hole and disappear. So all we see is a black hole. That's all we see. All right, but it's there, but we can't see it. But we know its presence from what happens around it. All right, they are very dense, 1.4 to 3 solar masses in radius of 10 kilometers. One spoonful of matter from a neutron star would weigh about 1 billion tons or more than the weight of many mountains on Earth. And if we drop that spoonful matter on Earth, it would pierce it and end up in its center. Just think of it. A spoonful of any matter on Earth hardly weighs more than a few grams. Neutron stars are considered to be the fastest spinning objects in the universe. Neutron stars sometimes become pulsars, as because of gravitational pull and angular momentum, they start spinning so much that they rotate as fast as 716 times. If you manage to stand in the equator of the fastest known pulsar, the rotational velocity would be about 1/10 of the speed of light, almost 30,000 kilometers per second. Okay, they emit radiation light in beams. When first observed, they were thought as LGM, little green men. Okay, little green men, or aliens, because they were emitting so fast and continuous sort of signal, like some intelligent being was sending that. You can think of neutrino stars as hearing rather than seeing beams of light, as the beams are in radio wave spectrum. But you could hear it precisely as a beep or a knocking or vibrating sound. And this is amazing. Now we're going to get to what the Quran is saying about this. Miracle in Quran is Surah Al-Tariq. Now, look at what the Quran says about 1,400 years ago in Surah Tariq, verses 1 through 3. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقِ النَّجْمُ الثَّاقِبِ. See, it's actually calling it a star. Najm is a star, okay, by the sky and the night comer. And what can make you know what is the night comer? It is the piercing star. All right, the meaning of the word tariq, this means to knock, okay? It means to knock. The word tariq, translated by early commentators of the Quran as Tariq as such, taken for a name, taken just as for a name, and left untranslated, or as morning star, bright star, or a night comer, while the literal meaning of Tariq is one who knocks at the door. The meaning, got that? One who knocks at the door. Okay. Uh, the meaning nightcomer is derived from it because in past times in Arabia, the one who comes at night usually knocks. Okay, so we're talking about in the 7th century, they had no idea of the things that we're discovering from space in regards to stars. All right, so being called a knocker, they have no idea. Why would it be called a knocker? Okay, so now we're discovering why. Okay, all right. Meaning night coming derived from it because in past times Arabia, the one who comes at night usually knocks at the door, as in the daytime, doors remain open and no need for informing your arrival or entry. It is taken as night comer or early morning comer or star because that makes sense for the past people, as they could not associate any sense and meaning of the literal meaning of the word in this verse. But it contains all the meanings for the coming generations. That is, for the previous human generations, the verse was given a sense as per their time. And for us, again, the verse has the capacity that it gives new meaning as per our modern understanding of science. As I told you above, that when pulsars were first discovered, they were thought as some intelligent being of the universe sending signals to Earth. But later, when matter became obvious, then they were given the name of pulsars. It seems that it is because of the pulsation and rhythmic beam of the star that scientists gave this name. The word pulse or pulsate means to beat or to beat rhythmically, okay? To move or throb with a strong, regular rhythm. What a miracle of the Quran that it says in the verse 2, as sort of the Tariq, that it is a star. Now, please listen to the 3 audio samples of the star beam signals, and you will be surprised if it is a star or someone knocking at your door. The miracle of Quran has many folds, and it's not only the star producing the sound of the door knocking by the human, but also the latest inventions related to door knocking, like doorbells and chimes. Below, all sounds are of this star. Look how it also resembles the modern bells when its pulse is at a higher rate. Now listen. We got it now, right? That the Quran mentioned that it's a star, and it used the word tariq, meaning the knocking, right? So listen to the sound of this star. Listen to the sound of this pulsar. Okay, I hope you heard that. It sounds like a knocking, right? Right? And also, if you recall, it said a piercing star. Okay, so not only knocking but piercing. So you hear a piercing sound. Listen. Okay, and not only is it a piercing sound to your ears, but also its weight also causes it to pierce into the fabric of the universe. The fabric of the universe. So listen here. Also, the word, saqib. Okay, thaqib. Okay, in Arabic. Now come back to the verse 1 through 3, Surah Al-Tariq. It gives three characteristics of the celestial object, Tariq. All right, first is that it pulsates, right? And we heard a pulsating sound and we heard a knocking sound and give the impression of knocking, beating. Second is that of the star. And lastly is that it penetrates and pierces, okay, right? We heard the piercing sound as well. All right. So all of those meanings fit into what we're actually experiencing with the pulsar. Now the word thaqib, okay, meaning piercing, opening holes, piercing, and moving on. Interesting, right? Now for the past generation, all right. Now for the past generation, they consider the meaning as a bright star that pierces the darkness. Actually, it does pierce the darkness. In the space is dark, but it goes into the fabric of the universe and disappears until you can't even see it, right? But now look at what new meanings it gives us with the modern scientific discoveries. You can think of it as made up of material so dense and heavy, as I told you above, that if we drop that spoonful matter, right? Um, drop that spoonful of matter on Earth, it would pierce it and end up in its center. All right. But more meaningful in the other sense, as we know that pulsars are neutron stars, which, because of their dense mass, distort space time. So you get a space time warp. But if this distortion increases because of increased gravitational collapse, at a point will be reached where that distortion would have grown so much that it could make a hole in space time, thus piercing the fabric of the cosmos, the fabric of space time. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Don't forget to subscribe and like and continue watching more amazing things to come. All right.